Welcome to the first video in the Back to Basics Freelancing series. So I'm super excited to connect with you today. And this one is going to be a huge video for you. So if you don't feel like you have your foundation set in freelancing and you're really looking to get started, this is going to be a basic video for you to really have some takeaways, really get to work and implement some things for your business. So let's jump in and get started. So when I first started freelancing, I started out of desperation. Like I needed to make income. I needed to make this freelance journey work. I didn't have any other options at the moment. And so I was going to do whatever I could to make this work. So what I like to call is the throw it at the wall spaghetti method. Let's try something, see if it works. If it doesn't work, okay. So what that led to is a life of chaos. And I did not have my foundation set up. I did not have a solid foundation. So I don't want you to make the same, I'm not going to call them mistakes, but I'm going to call them detours. So I'm not going to have you make the same detours or the, extra long road or the scenic route like I took. I want you to get the quickest way to making income as a freelancer as possible. So that's where strategy comes in. So making sure that you have a solid profile, like that's your foundation. But what is that? Like, what is a solid profile? Like I talk about all the time, and let's kind of dissect that and talk about what that is. So it's making sure that you have your profile filled out completely. Do you have a proper headline? Do you have a good about section where people are going to know after they read that paragraph or the couple paragraphs, are they going to know, one, what you're about, what services that you offer, and how they can work with you? Okay, those are the three questions that you want to make sure that you're answering in your profile. Do you have education background? So for me, my educational background made no sense and did not align with my freelancing. However, I still put it on there because people want to see that credibility. Like they want to see if you're educated and they want to see, your commitment. That length of time is what the people are looking for. So knowing what your skills are is another thing that's super important. If you are offering virtual assistant services, if you're offering project management services, if you're offering social media, if you're offering, this, that, and another thing, it can be a great thing for someone. Like if you can say that you are almost an expert in all of those, like you are a diamond in the rough, like that's what you are. But as far as marketing yourself, like that's going to be a little bit tricky. People want experts. So knowing where you're going to have your expertise, like that's going to be super important. So know your skills. Okay. The other thing that I want to talk about is knowing your worth. So when I started, I, again, just knew that I needed to make money. And what does making money look like? Okay, I needed to make sure that I had income coming in every week. So in order to do that, I took lower paying jobs. I did not know my worth. My mindset was kind of in the trash. So I was accepting jobs at a lot lower than my skill set and my qualifications deemed. So of course, everyone was going to hire me. Like that was a no-brainer for them once they started, like once they understood what skills I brought to the table. But here's a caveat to that. When you are working with a client at a lower rate and you're like, okay, I really need to make X amount per week, that means that you're going to have to work more. Or if you have a full client load, you have to raise your rates. And so from my experience, it's really difficult to have those conversations. And you might be a great salesperson to increase your rates. Like that's awesome. Like I was not. So it was really hard for me to say, hey, Susie, client over here, I really love working with you, but my rates are going up. So I've done that a couple times, and a couple times it worked well and a couple times it didn't work well. So you have to be prepared for those consequences or the changes that might happen because of that choice. However, when I raised my rates, I knew it's what I needed to do, and if you're working in projects, it's a little bit easier to raise your rates because you can just start applying for jobs. You can start sending proposals at a higher rate. Like that's fine. But if you have steady ongoing clients, that's where it gets a little trickier because they're used to paying that rate, and that's just what it is. So if you find a workaround for that, let me know, because that was not my strength. It was easier for me to find more clients at a higher rate and then just finish up those projects or weed out the clients, that were paying a lower rate if they didn't want to pay the increased rate. So setting a solid foundation. Okay, let's get back to that. So again, knowing what your worth is, knowing that your profile is super strong, and then going into the conversations of those interviews, of those first connection calls, like with confidence. Okay, that's part of building a solid foundation. And so I feel what led to my confidence is really knowing where my skills were, where they were at, and really understanding how I could serve my clients. So if you're in it just for the money, it's going to show through. Okay, if you're in it because you want to be an extension of someone's business, that is where you're going to be able to grow and leverage your freelance business. Okay, so think about those different things. And I think it's also really important to understand, like when you're getting started, if you're going to do this as a hobby, if you're going to do this as part-time, but you might want it to be full-time in the future, like those two things look very different versus if you are out of all options and freelancing is the lifestyle that you need to go down because you need the income. Like those are three very different conversations, and you need to have those conversations with yourself to see where you're at and then grow from there. So again, making sure that you take the dollar signs out of your eyes and being full of intention and genuine. Like people can tell when you're not genuine. And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is when you commit to something, make sure you are honoring those commitments. If you set a deadline for yourself, it's important. It's the most important thing is to follow through with that. Okay. So totally owning it. Like last week, I missed a deadline. It was just an absolute crazy week. My brain was just not in a place where I could finish that project. And I literally sent the client an email saying like, hey, this is not me at all. Like I just have a lot of life going on. It was just been completely crazy. And your project is like deep in my brain work, and I just don't have it in me. Like if I do it, like I can get it done, but you're not going to be satisfied with it and I'm not going to be satisfied with it. Can I have an extension? Like I was just very real, called it out, and they were so grateful and they were totally fine with that, But I try to build some buffer time into those deadlines. Okay. And that's for a whole nother video. So I'm going to end it here. This is the first video in the series of Back to Basics Freelancing. So next week we'll talk about getting hired as a freelancer. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm so excited to tackle with you. So tune in to the next video and we will tackle how to get hired as a freelancer.